So we have some beautiful blooms. And actually these ones were inspired, this topic was inspired by a little visit to see David Hockney's new exhibition of 30 flowers, where he had lots of different still life paintings on his iPad actually of different still lifes of flowers taken on different angles, but they all had like the edge of the table in place. So that was really interesting. And it was very inspiring. You just thought, oh gosh, how lovely. So I thought, let's have a go at doing that this time. So we've got the topic of pastel, I've got the medium of pastels, which make it really lovely to be able to just kind of get really into the flow and layer up these lovely pastels, which is really enjoyable. And actually, because of the way we have to almost kind of disregard a few of the rules, like we try and get those darks in place first of everything, but it's not really going to work like that because we've also got to look at what comes over what to layer up. So, for example, we're going to be working on this flower behind for this one before we layer this one up. So what I'm going to do, just if you use just a pastel that's one or two shades lighter so that you can just see it, but you can always blend it in if you're using pastel. If you're using paint, then go for it. But I'm not going to put too much drawing in. All I am going to do though, I'm just putting a line across the middle here. I'm not going to work with a grid today. We don't always work with them, just sometimes when it's quite complex. But I'm just more or less looking at, whereabouts the halfway is with this, just so that when I start to kind of plot it out, I know I can get everything in. So if I just pop myself a little halfway mark on there. Now I might actually have to, I think I'm going to work a bit darker because you're not going to see that if I do it like that with that colour. So I'm going to go in, I think I'll just go in with a green, to be fair. Let's find green. There we go. So that's my middle line. So all I'm thinking about doing with this is we're looking at kind of the angles of the lovely vase, and it's obviously square, that one, isn't it? And so, we can literally just kind of transfer it down. If I find the center, I mean, we're lucky because that more or less comes down the middle, doesn't it? Make that the middle. And then all I'm going to do is just use something straight to kind of get the angle on it. So transfer that to there, and then the other way, which is a bit flatter, transfer that to there, like that, so that I know I've got like kind of like the vase where I want it to go. And then again at the bottom, I'm going to have my bottom mark where I want this vase to end up. Now, obviously, this one's going to be more like the middle is going to be more in line, isn't it? Well, I mean, it's a good vertical drop. So that ends here. That's going to be there, the middle line, isn't the centre lined up really. Now, if this was a circular one, I'd be putting the ellipse in first and working out if it was a curve. You can hold a line across the curve and work out, is it really deep? Is it a really deep mark, or is it a small, like a narrow kind of a drop? But obviously this is a square one. And then again, I'm looking at the angle of this. Now, won't necessarily be parallel. The reason being for this is that, well, I think that this particular one has been taken at more an angle looking up when I looked at in big today. So if something's slightly looking up and it's had a photograph taken slightly looking up, or building slightly looking up, you tend to get a bit of a steeper incline on these angles than at the bottom. So just go with what it actually kind of looks like it's doing. So that's not quite as steep there. And just go with that. So it might not be as much, because sometimes these roofs and things, when they take photographs taken looking upwards, they are really steep at the top and it looks like it doesn't make any sense for a bit. I'm just going to draw a little line to draw this up here. There we go. And then I'm looking at this foliage, so I'm going to pop this in place just a few bits of foliage, just so I know where I'm going to start, where I want to start the top one. At the first, the first flower head. I'm not going to put loads of these stems on, just a couple so I can see whereabouts. And then from there we can go, and again we can proportionally see it. So if you did want to do it, like I thought that daffodil was more or less in the centre here at the top, but I'm going to put these ones in first. And they are quite, they're quite a size. And all I'm going to do there is just do a real general, if you wanted to do a bit more and kind of get some of the leaves put in, then that's fine. I just wanted to do a kind of a general shape so that when I come to doing those petals, I can make the shape when I'm actually make the shape with the pastel itself. But again, if you're drawing it out, you might want to put a little bit more on. And then I'm going to get these 3 central ones in and then make sure I've got enough room as well. So whilst I'm doing this, I am kind of looking at how far up I think it should come. So you can just pop a little bit of a little tiny few marks in there just to make sure it all fits. And then there's this big tulip here, which is quite proportionate. It takes up quite a lot of the page. That's fine.
Becky, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you can't see the drawing.
So I'm just going to go over this a little bit with a bit deeper so you can see it. But obviously when you're doing it, you do it a bit lighter so that you can easily move those lines. I think like my camera is picking up a lot of the light, so it's difficult to see. So we'll just pop that in. I'll just sketch over that again briefly so you can see it. My sketches are very rough at this point. So I'm going to go in again with these flower. For me, it's just a general shape of the flowers because I want to put most of it in with the colours that I go with and spend my time, doing that as opposed to sketching it out. Just personal choice. We're all different. Everybody will do this differently. There isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer or a better or worse. It's just having a little go. I'm certainly not the kind of artist to pick holes in the way people choose to do things, or person for that matter. Right. So get this third one in, and again, this will change as I go through and do a little bit, a little bit more on it. So literally, I'm just getting some very rough. You see, that's quite rough shapes in there at the moment. And then there's this, then from there you can start to kind of work outwards, and make sure we get all those bits in. So there's another layer of I think it's just a leaf, it might even be a tulip or something behind there. And then we've got these, but it makes it much easier. I might even put this tulip that comes out here, look, behind there, into place. So that then I can, make sure this one fits between it. So we're kind of we're just sandwiching things in really into place before we start doing the detail. And again, we've got something going on here, so I'm just going to get this beautiful hyacinth, that's what it is. And then there's Another one coming out here. So again, just plotting it out really, just making sure we get everything in there. Lovely though. It's beautiful, beautiful, wide, colourful shapes. Fabulous. So nice. So nice to see and observe them. And of course, you can pop in, you can move things, shift them. Don't have to be make our own rules up. That's the whole point, isn't it? Doing something. If you don't like something where it is, just move it. So you've got things in where I want. See if you've got everything where you want it to. Now, if you're wanting to do like a backgrounding first, that's absolutely fine. I actually haven't this time, because I'm not quite sure what colour I want to do that. Whether I'm actually going to leave this and just put a little bit of a slightly different table in or something behind it. So I'm gonna make that decision at the end. Also, I did actually today work top down because it just stops all this getting all over your hands and wrists and jumper. And I'm also going to just pop a little bit of glassine paper over it just to stop it smudging. You could use a bit of acetate or something as well if you don't have that, just to kind of so that you're not going over it. I tend to, it's difficult because I can't kind of work around this. Normally I would turn it round and things. So, because I'm left-handed, I find that I would smudge my work anyway. So I'm just going to pop this over to help myself. And then I'm starting to look at all of these different colours. Now, going back, thinking about pastels, what we need to think about is, let's move that out of the way. What we need to think about is its best fit with the pastel colours that we have. And also really just kind of train them out, and because they never come out like the colours that you think that they are. So I'm going to use that one for sure. I'll pop that there. That's a dark blue. So I'm thinking about the darks in here. I'm going to need some highlights as well. So I'm going in with a light blue there. And I'm just testing those two together, like one over the top of the other actually. And I'm looking at, so what I'm actually doing is I'm starting right at the back, and looking at this very back flower because this one obviously overlaps it. So we'll get that set into place before I go over with the yellow one. And same kind of like rules in applying it. What we're trying to avoid that muddiness. And we're also trying to avoid creating a photograph. And it's really important is that actually, because we're having this conversation today. What you want is your mark making in there. Whatever your material is that you're doing, you want your mark making in there, your artist mark. So it stands out as yours. So, just represent those in a way that feels good to you. As certainly as we get like the top layers on and we're kind of building those layers up. If you want to put some like scribbles and things or whatever in there, then brilliant, do it. I think it gets a bit, I think we lose that connection with it if we're just trying to recreate something that's not ours, if that makes sense. So let your stamp come over this as well. So I'm going to go in with those two to start with. I'll get the other colours out in a moment. Just watch for fingers getting really muddy. So you will need to wipe those in between. And you may need to, depending on which colours you've got, you may need to clear off, just wipe off with a bit of tissue paper or a kitchen roll or something, your pastel as well. I've got mine handy because I got very good with this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with this first layer of to try and get these dark pops of hydrangea here. Now, often what we're doing is we're just creating the shapes that we can see. And if you're not sure where to start, you can always do like most of that colour on there and then, put the light one over the top. So I'm just going to fix that in. Now, this is tiny. I'm working on a very small surface, but I'm just going to keep going round. This is one of the ones where I can actually get some darks in. That's much easier. Sometimes there's too much dark to see all of it and where we put it at once. Mhm. So fix that in. Just going to give my fingers a quick wipe. So I'm just kind of creating some shapes there. And I'm going to go in with my highlight, blow that off. Just keep blowing the chalk just off. And then any other light colour that we put over the top, we just need to remember. So I think I've got one that's a little bit purpley as well. I'm going to use that a little bit over here because this was the bit that felt a bit more purpley to me earlier. Use a bit of that. We just need to put more pressure when we go over the top with the light one so that it sticks into place firmly. I'm going in with a light blue here. So you can see it's light blue over there, but actually it's so, it's bright compared to the dark one, so it'll look light. And I'm just creating a few of those little textures that we can see. Doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to feel and that when I put all these colours together, that it feels like it could be a hyacinth, which it will start to when we put these, little bits in it, but not much more like it. And you can always pop, ball's not lost if you haven't put your dark in now. You can still kind of pop some shape back in with the edge of it, or even a pencil. If you're working really small and you can't get any kind of definition in there and you want to kind of make it feel a bit more defined, then there I can just work in. Make that feel a bit more bell-like there. And then I'm going to go pop in this area here. I'm also looking, is there any other shadows that I want to pop in? I'm going to just test these pencils. Does this would make sense for me at this point because it's so thin? I'm going to go in with this colour. This is going to go over the top, so then it'll feel a bit more like it. There we go. And there's a little gap that I've lost there between that, so I might just have a little go. Pop in a similar colour back between, and that will create the shape. So this is the other thing we can do. We can always put a bit of shape back in it by, popping a similar colour to the background in. And that's kind of, that's, we're layering those up and we're just being mindful. So I'm not really smudging that in. I'm keeping that kind of sitting on the top and just very light pressure to get that popped in there. I might just pop a little bit more. A little bit more colour in here. Sometimes we can lose the shape. So I'm not drawing around it. I'm just kind of popping in a bit of wherever I've lost the shadow in there. I will put the shadow that comes underneath this beautiful yellow um, tulip. And again, what we've got to look at is the different tones of yellows and things in there. The daffodil is quite warm, so we've been looking at a yellow that's leaning towards more orangey. for example. So test if you've got more than one yellow in your kit. You know, these your acidic ones are great for highlights actually, so I'll keep that there because I'm going to use that for capturing some of these little bits as I come along to the DAF. But also I'm just mindful at the colours. I'm going to go in with this one for this tulip. So if you have an area where you can see it's darker and you can put it in, then by all means do it. And if not, go in with the mid-tone first. It's okay. I might actually just darken it off a little bit of this side. Just by using a slightly warmer pastel. It's quite bright on there. And here, because I'm overlapping on that over the top of the blue, I've got quite a bit of pressure on there. And then just check off the side of your pastels as well to make sure, okay. Right, just making sure that I get in there. Go. So in here again, I'm going to look at even some orangey tones or pinky tones on there, whatever you think comes underneath. Now you can start to see where you get these shadows cast underneath the all the leaves and things. I'm going to go in a bit of orange, just so it feels like it's a bit warmer. And it won't make sense now, but it will when we can see that other flower overlapped. You know, the same again at the bottom. It's just deciding what colour you're making these kind of darker tones, whether it's more of a you know, a blue base colour or whether it's another. I'm going a bit of blue in there. So I've just popped a little highlight in there. And again, sometimes you need, you know, to see the slightly more shadowy colour behind that, so it pops. So don't be frightened of going in with another slightly darker colour behind it, so it feels like it's standing out. Just give it a go. But yeah, you tend to kind of get some good pressure on with these light colours here, so they do really stand out. And then we're looking at, you know, what comes next. I'm looking at this purple again. You might not have the exactly the colour. Something else we can do is layer up. So I'm just going to test a couple of my purples here. This one's more what kind of, that's quite nice. This has got more red in it. So when we're looking at the difference between that and let me find another purple that's more violet, that's got more blue in it. I think I've only got this one, actually. It's a pencil. That one's got more blue in it. So you can see the difference between those two, but sometimes we can use that as a shadow. So I'm going to go on with a base, but then start to really look in to all the other colours that you're seeing build up on here. So, for example, I'm just going to go in with one colour for now because because of what I'm working on is quite small. But if you on a bigger scale, you could, you know, you can actually start to kind of put the patches of colour on if it's easy to do so. No pressure though to do that. But I'm just going in with one. Then I'll go in with the darker ones, and then I'll go in with the lighter ones. Line off that chalk dust. And then you can start to look out, obviously I'm getting the shadowy bits in first here, because we need the shadows very much to be able to see what's behind them, to make those shadowy bits kind of sink down a little bit. So we'll need, the dark colours will start to recede, and then it gives us a sense of, of depth at the end of the day, that, some things are going to go backwards and then some things are going to come forward. So it helps, it's really important that we have that contrast in there. So yeah, so we need those shadows. But we also need sometimes another mid-tone colour. So we're not just going in at the end with a brighter colour. So I've got a different colour purple, but I may even go in with a, and it's not that one. So I need to test my colours as well, because they're, I think it's that one, yeah. Let's see. It's not the dark one. Just having a slightly darker one. Fixing that in place, my fingertip. Or you could use a little bit of you could use your paper blender or something like that just to fix things in. But we really tread really lightly with that because it will just start lifting stuff off if you're not careful. Give my fingers a good, keep your fingers nice and clear, so that yeah, so it doesn't muddy. And then before I go in this highlight, I'm looking at other colours. And again, this is where your artist's eye really comes in, because you may see some other colours and you think, oh, I'm surprised. Like I could see like a pinky reddy colour. So I'm just going to try that over the top. Yeah, that's what I can see. So I'm going to go in with this kind of another mid-tone here that's almost got a bit of red in it, because that's what I can see in this inside bit here. It's not what everyone can see, but you've got to go with what you can see at the end of the day. And then I'm going to go in with a nice bright pink down here as well. So it's just, again, testing. If you haven't got the exact one, that's fine. You can even layer up two different colours like I've just done to get like the shadow in. Let's see, it's not going with a brighter. This might not actually. Yeah, I'm going to go over that one. So I think I'm going to have to go in with a lighter pink in here somehow. Let's see if this one's a different colour. No, that's what I just used. What other pinks have I got? Let me go much more to think. But I'm just looking at, like the top of this bit here feels like it's got a bit of a lighter colour in it. Just going in with that. So your highlight doesn't always have to be white. It can be another tone in there. And I'm going to go in with a very light highlight now. Probably, let me see if I've got a light pink. I did have. I may even go in with the right one. So I'm going to now put the highlight over and just again create some nice shapes. So it really kind of stands out a little bit. And then that bit that's the highlight will pop forwards, give you a little bit more shape in some of these leaves, in some of these petals. So I've gone in with light pink rather than white with that, but you could always go because it's quite light. Just on the edge of the leaf as well there. I might actually make that one lighter so that one just put more. So you're looking, little bits to see. I'm starting to do it. And all we can do is represent it the way we see it. I'll work my shadow just a bit more back in there. And then start to think about some of these other colours and things. So again, I'm looking where it overlaps. So we've got this. I'm just going to pop this, just demonstrate this daffodil, because a lot of people find those quite tricky. And then this, obviously this tulip leaf behind it first. That's quite light, isn't it? It's quite light behind, so I'm going to go in with some colours that are a bit lighter behind this daffodil. I think it is a tulip leaf that's open behind it. I was to guess, and I'll try and represent that. Doing exactly the same, going in with these shadow colours behind it and creating the shape and things like that. And a warmer one. Really warm one. Sometimes the contrast isn't enough to see, so we have to just go in with something brighter. And then something, not quite a bit darker. I'm going to go in really bright because that's really capturing the light on the top there. So I'm just going to go a bit of the white one there. Just gently set it. I'm working on pastel mat today, which just hold a lot more. So I'm really taking advantage of that and really pressing it down. But each of the paper that you're using will only take so much. So you're just getting used to the papers that you're using as well is quite a big bit, I think, with pastel. So things like the daffodils, we've got, this very deep center. So when you start to look in there, you'll start to see, the bits that are sticking out at the end of the tulip, at the end of the daff here that sticks out, the trumpet is lighter. And then we've got, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, which shows the wrinkly effect of it. And that dark's doing quite an important job there. So I'm going to look for another orange to work with it. I think I did actually use this one today, so I'll use the same one and I'll use that. But also, so I'm using like an orange and a yellow together there. But also, just test that one. That one. It's thinking about this bit in the tube down here. So we've got a few things going on that we need. So I'm going to pop that in first. So part of this tube, the down the centre where it's really further down, part of it is, oops, a bit far down there. I'll draw that in with a bit of orange pencil. That one, it's there. Part of it is orangey, but then some of it you might want to even take advantage and go even deeper with where it's really down very much in the middle there. That can help as well. So I'm just smudging this in, just to fix it in place. I'm just observing the shapes that I can see, but then when it's kind of right down the middle here, I'm just going to pop in a much darker colour, because that kind of shows how it goes really kind of much further down, and that'll sink back in a minute when we've got the other colours into place. And just tap it, wipe your fingers off. And then I'm going to use a bit of a brighter one around that, because where it's coming on this top area is quite bright around the top. And then, so what we'll have is the opposite, the colours that sink down because they're darker and the colours that pop up because they're brighter. And we want that on this bit that's exposed on this top area that's poking out, sticking up, catching the light basically. And that's working exactly as we'd expect it to. And we'll just get this top kind of ring fixed in place. And there's I've got a little gap there, so I'm going to make that just slightly darker. I'll go in with a slightly darker yellow in there because it's still in the tube. I'm going down a little bit. Just blend that a bit. Nice pop of bright here. And then I'm going to go back to like a warmer one and get some of these little frills in place as well. So the frills are going to, so I'm going in with I'm going in with an orangey colour. I mean, you don't have to go as bright as that if you don't want to, but I tend to like quite a high contrast. So that's what I'm doing. And all I'm doing is literally just shading bits in here. So it's going to feel frilly when we get the other colours in it. It will look a bit extreme to start with when you get the darks ones in first, but then we can soften it down afterwards a little bit. And then we want to get the other colours, other tones in amongst that. That softens it down. It's not quite so dark then. Pull some of these just brightest ones through as well. And then we can start to have a little look then and think, do I need to make any a bit more shadowy? Just work in a little bit. I'm just going to work really lightly on that. I'm just going to create a little bit more shape, as it were. Sometimes you can't see the edge of the frill, so I'm just going to just put a little bit of shadow where I can think that they're needed in there. Oh, so just take a pause there. But I'm just going to, before I take a pause, I'm just going to adapt mine slightly. Just bring a little bit of this in. It's got a bit quite deep now. This bit. Let's see how you're getting on. So just keep working our way through and looking at what comes next. I think there's another beautiful, you can almost smell those hyacinths, can't you? They're really lovely. So again, I'm looking at the two colours. I'm going to look at this, see this one, that's quite a nice bright. And then I think I'm going to go for a contrast with this one. Yes, that's fine. I might even go see if I've got an even lighter one. We'll see. Let's see. I thought I did have one actually. I don't know where that's gone. It'll be somewhere in this box. So let's see. Oh, it might be that one. Yeah, I'll go with this one. So again, the pink tones. Some pink tones, like this one, are more peachy. They're warmer. They've got more yellow in them. Those pinks. And these ones are a bit slightly cooler. They've got less yellow in them, and they've got a bit more. They're leaning very marginally towards blue, but not. They're still warm enough. But it's more like an alizarian crimson colour that you would get with this. So again, just start working in some colours. I might have to actually work. Let's do something like that. Just do my best with the size of paper I've got here. And again, I'm just kind of laying down some marks between, trying to get that frilly feel. So again, a lot of it's about the feel that we're trying to get, isn't it? Really. Yeah. Some of these contrasting ones. Going in with a highlight is quite important for them. Sometimes you can just put a few little strokes on and it starts to feel more like the shape of just a few little marks here and there. So it's getting a bit more pink down at the bottom. So I'm popping a few pulls down here. I might just go in with a bit of pink. And I'm going to go back to a much lighter pink here. It's almost white, to be fair. With white, sometimes you're better off going in with a white pastel than a white pastel pencil if you're trying to get that real pressure over the top of another colour that's darker. Because they're more like chalky, basically, and the chalk will stick really well. And again, just working through what we've got. So you can lose the definition because you go in, and we might go in a bit kind of excitedly with a colour and think, oh no, I've got rid of all the other colour. That's fine. Just go back and pop it in. Pop some of the other back in if you've gone a bit too light, for example. You feel like you're losing some definition there. Just go in with a bit more, with another colour, basically. So we go in with another similarly. Back another, just going to stem in there. Some of these stems as well have quite, you know, areas where you get a little bit of quite bright green on them. So it's just looking at that. You know, and like we said, it's how you're representing it because we can't always see the shapes anyway. Like it's quite hard on uh this particular one here to see what's going on with all the shapes, but just kind of pop some in to start with. You can always come back to it, can't you? And then, you know, again, we're looking at what's coming next. It's kind of quite dark, another quite dark one there. It's almost like almost burgundy brown, isn't it, that one? So I think I'm going to pop in a couple of colours here to make it darker. And then with a bit of purple over the top as well. I think that's even darker. Or you could go in with a blue or brown. Just having an explore to see what colour you see. I'm not trying to make it photographic. I'm just kind of trying to represent what I can see. And I'm just going to pop in a little bit of whatever colour this one's. Maybe a bit pinky. I'm not sure. I'm not going to make. I might even be orangey. So again, I'm just going to look. It's just having that contrast really. I'm going to go orange because I don't think that would be too bright. Just to give it a slight bit of like maybe that colour shining a bit over it, you know. So yeah, so we end up with best fit as well, which is great. It's really good for us to try best fit because we'll be a bit more bold with our colour choices as well, and that we would normally be with paint. With paint, we would definitely mix that. And let's just think about this colour here. So again, it's looking at like the little, you know, where the highlights come on these flowers as well. That creates the shape too. So I'm looking again at this one. It's quite velvety, isn't it? Actually, it's lovely, but it's like thinking, what colour could that be? So almost, it's yellowy at the bottom. It's almost peachy, ready. I'll just try a few colours. It's quite dark. That would be good in some places. I think I'm going to overlap a few colours here. So this one round here. Try it. Making sure we've got contrast between the one that we've used behind it as well. So I'm going to pop in with a pencil here. A bit of over the petal and touch here as well. Fixing that in. And then there's the back one as well. It's coming over in a curved way. Sometimes we can get a bit lost in the petals. So if you feel like that's happening, then just kind of do a pause and then get some of the highlights put in so you can see where those petals are. Again, I'm looking at these yellows. I'm going with a slightly duller yellow because it is underneath after all. I'm going in with it's much darker than the others. It's got less brightness. I can just kind of brush it in really softly to get that velvety feel. Brush it very softly with your finger. And then you can have a little look to see if there are actually any shadowy areas in there and get those in if they are. So I'm looking, feeling a bit, feeling a bit like it's a bit more shadowy in some of these places. So I'm just going to, again, just softly brush that in. I'm going to bring this highlight right up because I feel like the edge of that is actually catching the light a bit. And that, again, you sometimes get a highlight or a shadow, and that's creating the shape and the edge of it. And then it's deciding, what colour is your highlight here? Is it a pinky one or is it another colour? And all you can do is try and go in. So I'm going to start to pop in just these on the edges. Mhm. Mhm. And then final highlights, I'm just going to go with anything that's really capturing the light, so it's not everywhere, but again, sometimes we can see um, the shadow behind creates the shape, and if you haven't got it, then just pop it back in, just pop that shadow behind in. And then again, I'm looking at this next one. So we're just working forwards and working forwards. Now, obviously the lighter ones are more tricky. So you want to go in with white the very last. Look at some of the tones in here. So it might even be like a peachy colour, a very light pink or something that you can layer up inside. And then you want to reserve your highlights for these very brightest, lightest areas. So that's the trick, I think. Which colour are you going to go in with? This one's actually a bit of a lilac colour, so I'm going to go in with that. And I may even place that all over to make it easier to see it, and then just pop in those really brightest and lightest ones. I'm going to recreate the shapes. I've lost the shape over here. Now just starting to get some of these, almost blocking out, aren't we? some of these shapes in here. Setting them down. But I'm going to start to put in some bit of shadow again. Now I'm going to go in with a bit of a cooler pink if I can. Almost like with some of the ones that I've used, because those slightly cooler ones have got less warmth in, so it will feel a bit more, like it should be inside. And then working on these outer ones. Again, you need to put plenty of pressure on, and you may need to just clean up your pastel a bit as well if it's catching. And then probably the next ones. So I may just, again, just create some shadow here, because there is some shadow in here. Use that shadow to create the edge of your petals here, because I can see it in there. Soften it down. You almost end up with a highlight, but you've also got the shadow behind it as well, so that they act together, which is what you'd expect to see. A shadow underneath because it's in the darker bits, and then the tops of the petals capturing the light. Again, just carefully kind of like getting these colours that are underneath. I'm going in with a cooler pink, one that's not quite got as much brightness in it. And I'm going to use that to create a shape, where these kind of move. You get these lovely petals coming underneath here at the base. And I may have to, because it's so delicate down there, I may just need a good blending tip just to fix it in a little bit. I'm not going to over rub it in, just kind of keeping it nice and nice and careful. And then just then you can pop in anything else, any other shapes that you didn't capture before, these highlights going in. Shadows that are slightly lighter shadows. Just nice and softly. And almost like a little bit, that's what I'm seeing, but again, you pop in what you can see. I'm seeing a bit of a cooler pink, cooler yellowy almost there, but see what you see. You see completely different. So we're working through those flowers. And again, just check. If you can't see the edge of your petals, just think, is there something I need to, is there a bit of a shadow somewhere that I need to pop in? Like down here, we're getting an obvious yellow, aren't we, down there where the back of that petal is coming through. And then we can continue on again with these frilly ones and just kind of blend it in as needed, really. And behind there, I'm seeing a bit of shadow actually, you can see now. So it's not a harsh line. We're not like literally drawing around because we want to keep we literally draw around the shape, you're not going to be able to see the softness, the lines, keep it soft. But you can just put key points, give them a bit of definition. And then we've got the last of the colour in here, which is lovely. Now, if you've got anything going on between, like you have like a leaf or anything like that creeping up, then get that one in as well behind the flower even. And again, looking at different tones. Plenty of pressure there. And highlights, you see. So again, we're looking at the different types of colours of the greens. Some of them are yellowy green, some of them are sap green. That was quite a mossy green. Just test your colours out and see what you've got. That's very, very pale. So I'm looking for more of a yellow green. That was a bit more yellow green. Just to blow the dust off a little bit as well. Again, it's looking for the colours in all of the flowers. I'm going to go in. I think I'm going to go in with like mid-tone for that one, but it's very peachy, isn't it? So I'm wanting not quite as bright as that. Maybe a combination of pink and red together. So I kind of go in. I'm going to overlap them. So I don't want it to be quite as bright as that one. But that might just be the different colours that I put between it though. We'll see what that happens if I add a bit of red. Move it slightly, and there's quite a lot of yellow in there I'm seeing as well, which will make it more peachy by nature. But these frilly ones, you can get um, lovely textures and tones in them. Let's try another tone of some of these because I'm getting a bit carried away with all these colours in it. Not too dark. Okay. I'll try that one. Right. When I'm doing this, I have to be careful I'm not just scraping up um, just scraping up all of the colours. Well, you can start to pop in the shadows, so that will really, well, you've got a big dip there. That'll help create the shape again. That's what we're doing all the time. It's just that contrast. And then thinking about the contrasting colour that you're putting on the highlight, whether it's white, whether it's just a pink. Just thinking about these things. Interesting colours on this one. Really interesting. Until we get to the very lightest colours on there. Just put them away, put the border with those, lights and darks. That's all you can do. And then you'll start to get the shapes coming through. Really nice, enjoyable process is this, so it's absolutely lovely. Getting lost in all those lovely petals and things. We've got to admit that I'm very, very lucky to have this job. Helping people with the ideas for inspiring ideas for art. It's lovely. Oh, what's in this little leaf? And again, if you're not happy about something, you can just adapt it. So, we do tend to lose a little bit of the definition as we go through. But again, like I said before, just have a little look where the shadow is and carefully just pop it back in. We can do it so we can break it up nicely so it's not going to be too stiff or lose lose the shape. Mhm. And then There's the last few flowers, and then we'll look at, where the all the foliage, all this foliage joins up and everything. So with white flowers, that's got slight tint. But with white ones, we want to go in with the shadowy bits. It's finding, some kind of shadow, whether you might want to go in with a grey or a taupe. Just have a little look at what you've got. I'm just going to move my pencil across and move these up a little bit because we're getting into a bit of a lovely mess here. And try this taupe colour to see if that's a colour. I might use that over here. Or with this one that's a bit more lilac-y. Or what else have I got in there? Let's see about that one. Okay, that one, or you could even use a green colour if you wanted. So I'm just going to start to pop down some colours, where I feel that we're getting the shadow. You could even go with a light blue or something if you wanted to do that. As I said, or a light green. Just kind of build up these shadowy colours where I can see that they're going in. To make sure your fingers are really clean for this, so it's where we start to lose some of the colour. So it tends to be anything that's, underneath or not quite in the shade. And go with this is almost like a more grey based one. So because it's going away, I'm going to go in with that one. Excuse me. Set those in. Again, it will feel quite harsh at the moment because we've not got any other colours in. And then I'm looking at other colours that I might have. So you've got difference there, very slight. This one's cream and this one's white. So I'm still going to go in with some of these colours around the taupey ones and start to build up these other tones that I can see before I go in with the white. And then I'll put in the white in the very brightest place of each of them. In fact, I may not even finish putting those ones in there. I'm just building it up in this area here. And then I'll go in with the very brightest, like the white, pretty much here now. This one over here has got a lot more light, so once we have that on, it's amazing, actually, the difference putting a real white one on makes. On top of that, we really get that, really then catches the light. But it is, it's when you start to look at the tones in there, to be able to get that, capture that real brightness, we do need to build up the layers. The other tones. So, that only really this end bit is highlighted over here. We've got a few bits on the stem around the bottom there of the. So I've just lost a bit of the shape there because I've got in with my daffodils. I'm just going to pop that back in and then just carefully work that little highlight, which does come around this edge. Okay, so just pat it in. And again, if you're thinking, oh no, I've lost a bit of definition, just go back in with some, another, you can go back in and pop a little bit of a shadowy bit back in if you need to. Nothing stopping you doing that at all. This one feels like it's a bit more shadowy down that side, so I'm just going to change that. And then just thinking about in here, so this is where you've got to find out where all those darker shadows go. So just testing, find something that's the darkest area that you want to go in with. So I'm looking again with the greens, something that is quite dark. Let me have a look on mine here. I'm testing them. So I'm not wanting a warm green, I'm wanting a cool, a coolish green. That's quite good. And then really I can just go in with where these shadow areas are. You're doing the best fit as well. So if you can see any definite, you can see any definite shapes and put those in. And even if it goes all the way down behind the bars, pop those in. Sometimes it's easier to start with stems as well, even if they are over the top. At least you could pop it in to see where you want it to go. So I'm looking at the brighter ones now. I'm looking at this one, for example. Let that twist and come round. That one really ideally needs to be more of a yellow green, but I'm just going to work a yellow over it. I don't really have a yellow green. So what I'm looking at is how we get a little bit of a highlight around that underneath there. And then again, if we've got any other darker ones, for example, we can pop those in. I've got another one running alongside that stem, which runs pretty much over it, doesn't it? It kind of comes in behind somewhere. And then I'm looking, what have I got left between these? There's another very dark patch in there. I don't know what that's attached to, but it could be a leaf coming out the top, but that's fine. And then there's another, so so all we're needing to do is looking in at what stems we can see in there and just kind of trying to pop in, make sense of what we can see really. When they come down, they tend to be a bit lighter in this pot, slightly lighter. I'm just going to put a bit more, less pressure on. But yeah, things do tend to be a little bit lighter in the actual glass. Just with how the light slips. Same with this, it might be like you're just following the stem around. That is really helpful. And it's very light on there, so we don't get much. We get some quite bright colours down this side. So I'm going to go in with those that they kind of come in as well underneath. Underneath with the colours. Set those in. Some brightish ones down here. So you can just have a little play around with some of the colours that you're seeing. And again, if you don't have the right one, just layer over with a couple of colours and see what happens. And that's what we're doing. We're just weaving these different colours in, and much lighter on this side in the light. And then we get these strong contrasts as well. So there's another, that's the one. I'm just following it around like that. Mm. Oh, that's quite That's quite a good colour, actually. Let's put one navy. And then you need to go in with a bit of yellow as well. It's not still quite warm. Just put a little bit more yellow in there. Just kind of fuse it out a little bit because again, that's the other thing that happens. It does tend to be everything's a little bit refracted in there. It's not perfect. And moves and shifts. So some of these colours move and shift. Can't always tell what's what going on or where something else is between, because it's behind the glass. Mhm. Just adding all the highlights or lowlights to what you can see. Very enjoyable though. Fix them into place with either blending tip or something else. And then it's really capturing all of these darks between it is really important because that's how we can see those individual stems basically by adding the dark ones between it. Really important. And then you might just have a few more dark ones in here, you might not. So we've just almost got to try and replicate just the shades and things we can see, because as I said, it all becomes a bit of a muddle in here. You might have the odd stem that's coming round. And then there might be the odd highlight as well. So I would then be thinking about, this glass work, but I'll just take a pause before and see how everyone's getting on. Because there's lots to think about in there. Okay, so now we've got everything, pretty much things that are underneath our vase. We need to think about the light going on the top of it and any shadows as well. I am just going to pop a very small amount of a different colour here. Just so you tend to get a little bit of what colour of the background is, and I may actually do make it a light colour, but I'm just going to pop in something so there's some kind of slightly different colour in there. There we go. And then it's just kind of neatening up some of these. So we tend to find, these areas here, so this glass over the top is really quite important. We tend to get kind of quite strong angles of like light at the top of the vase as well. So we'll pop those in. And then obviously, the more you look, this is why I'm going in with a white pastel as well. Quite putting quite a lot of pressure on over all of that green. Then you might, we might have some straight lines in there, but we might also have some areas that are where the light is also catching the edge of some of these stems as well, which is actually what's happening, which is what I can see. I'm just going to pop those in where we can see those. And then anywhere else you can see that looks, when you start to look in there, you'll see a bit more. So it might be actually the edge. We're seeing a little bit on the edge of this this one here. Now I tend to do a bit of a broken line, otherwise it can get a little bit difficult to do. So not all of that is all the way down. There's some in there, some on here, but then we've got these, obviously the light's really bouncing off this glass here. So I would then go in exactly what's happening there with these blocks of colour, just to show how much it is. And it may well be, you've got to really get some pressure on there to get that to really bounce off. Look where else, there might be some more on, say, on the edge of that. Maybe some at the bottom, between. So just got to keep looking now at where these patches are. If you've got like a big patch like here, it's quite light over the top here. Just go in with exactly what you see. If it's a big patch of it, just draw that in. And it comes all the way over the base as well, that right to the bottom. So we're really pretty much seeing exactly what we can see, you know. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to pop in a few of these other shadowy colours because we need the shadows in as well. Some of these will have edges, you know, of colour in there. So whether it's, you know, greys or whatever colour it is you want to represent that with, that's up to you entirely. I'm just kind of popping those in where we can see those. Sometimes you get them underneath as well. So it may well be you want a darker shadow underneath somewhere where it's much, you know, on top of the surface and you've got that shadow going under. You might get some like little triangles of shapes as well. So we're just working out, you know, what's going on and where these colours are and just trying to pop them in and building up this picture of what's going on there. All we can do is wherever you see a little bit of light, pop that in. And that's it really. So if you want to pop in a little bit of a background, you can. I'm just going to go with what David Hockney's inspiration, and I may just put in the edge, you know, the edge of this of a table or a shelf or whatever, just so I've got something for it to sit on, and then we also can pop a bit of shadow. I'm not going to go with these planks, so I'm going to think about I'm going to go in with quite a neutral tone actually, but you can go in with anything. You can go with a bright. You can go in with this taupey one. Since we've been talking about taupe. But you could go in with bright blue, you know, anything you fancy. Brights, blues, anything. And what you can do is if you have got if you have got a bit of background in, you can bring that right up to the edge of your vase as well. So I'm going to really kind of smudge that in. I'm going to be a bit careful, going up too far. Just with how far I've got it. I want it to move around nicely. Get that set in. And then, you can have a little look at where, if you want to pop any shadows in, just have a, on here, it's coming out this way, actually, you can actually see it. So I would just go in with a slightly darker tone of that grey, perhaps. And then what have I got? Let's see. That one, not doing nicely. So, you can literally just look at what's happening on the picture where the shadow seems to be. And then, if you can also use that to affect, so if you see a lighter area coming in as well, you can just add a little bit of a slight highlight as well, where you can see the light coming in, make that just a little bit, brighter at that one side or whatever, where the light's heading in from. So we can do also, we can vary that. We can make it quite simple background, but we can just bring in, a few little elements where we're building in some slight, you know, slight light in there as well. And vice versa, just a few little kind of shadowy areas as well. That's all I probably do. I'm not going to do anything to the back, the back of it at the top, but it's one of those decisions you just make as you're going along. But I hope that's been really helpful, and being able to think about kind of how the glass works and everything. The other thing you can do is, if you're finding that there's bits in there that you think, oh well, I've kind of lost the shape, then you can put in a bit of shadow back in behind this glass even, and make that pop even more if you want to. Where the shadow, you tend to get that anyway at the base, because all these flowers are in there. That's the only thing I do. But just have a little play around with what you've got. You can even go a bit into the background if you've gone a bit over, and work a bit in there. And that's it really. And obviously, once you peel your tape off, it looks so different anyway. Anything for a nice little frame. And yeah, it's a lovely opportunity to explore flowers in pastels. So I hope that's been helpful.